Yo, what is going on YouTube? This is your boy Dan, aka aDrive. I'm bringing you guys our week 4 team builder here. The St. Louis Rampardos are taking on the Bristol City Blazikens, and Coach GameboyLuke here for our week 4 matchup. Now we are now 2-1, and the Blazikens are 1-2, and we're rolling here, man. I'm hoping we can continue our momentum and hopefully pick up another win this week. I do want to say that team building this week was quite challenging. Luke's got a very dynamic team with a lot of different threats on his team, and I'm going to cover those now, and then we'll talk a little bit about the Pokemon I'm going to be bringing this week and why we are bringing them. So, without further ado, the first Pokemon on his team is, of course, Mew. Mew is probably the most versatile Pokemon in the Draft League format. It's a very, very good Pokemon. It can be a setup sweeper from both sides of the plate, either special or physically offensive. It can be defensive. You kind of have to prepare for the Stall Breaker Mew, which is like a Will-O-Wisp, Defog, Soft Bolt, or Recover kind of set. But you have to kind of keep in mind that it can do a lot of other things as well, so you have to be very, very careful around Mew. He's also got a Talonflame. Obviously, everyone knows about Smogon Bird. This thing has priority Brave Bird because of Gale Wings, allowing it to hit really, really hard. It's also got Flare Blitz. Could be a Swords Dance Sweeper. Could have Will-O-Wisp. Could be a bulk upset. It can do so many different things, so we have to be very, very careful about Talonflame, and it's going to be a priority to get Stealth Rocks up as a result of that. He's also got a Gyarados, and he can bring regular Gyarados or Mega Gyarados, whichever suits his desires. Gyarados is a bit scary as well, because he can be like a setup sweeper, substitute Dragon Dance with 2 coverage moves. He could also be like a setup sweeper Gyarados and use that Mold Breaker to his advantage. So we do have to be very, very careful around that Gyarados. Sylveon is a huge, huge threat. It's a great wall breaker with choice specs, can be huge offensive pressure, but he also tends to bring like a defensive variant, like physically defensive Sylveon with Heal Bell and Wish is usually pretty standard because Hyper Voice is a good move on its own, but he could bring like an offensive variant with Psyshock to take on Venusaur. He's also got a Lucario. Obviously, this thing is scary because it's got priority from both sides, extreme speed, bullet punch, vacuum wave, a lot of different things like that. So we have to be very, very careful around Lucario and make sure he doesn't set up on us. And also be wary of the fact that he does have Steel type and Fighting type coverage. Kyurem, regular Kyurem isn't as scary as Kyurem Black or Kyurem White, but it is still a threat. 130 base attack, I believe, across the board. Hits really hard with Ice Beam and things like that. We have to be very, very careful with Kyurem and make sure we get those Stealth Rocks up early. Again, that's a huge priority because you can see between Gyarados, Talonflame, and that Kyurem, Stealth Rocks are going to do a number on some of his bigger offensive threats and really be crucial for our team moving forward. He's got a Seismitoad as well, which he may bring. He could bring Seismitoad as a check to Vaporeon and some other threats, but it is very, very weak to grass types, of course. Could be a Stealth Rock setter, otherwise it gets knockoff and a lot of utility moves. Spiritomb can be scary too, another setup sweeper, but also has priority through Sucker Punch and Shadow Sneak and things like that. Also could be a Pursuit Trapper, could be like a Nasty Plot variant, so we do have to be careful there. Sceptile, regular Sceptile does have a very good speed stat, hits pretty hard too, especially if you run like an Unburdened variant, you can double the speed, make sure you're outpacing pretty much everything. It does lack a little bit of offense unless you boost its offenses, like running Leaf Storm, or if you want to run like a Swords Dance variant, it's a little bit weak otherwise. He's got a Weezing, which is a very good response to Excadrill because of its Levitate ability, and he can run Will-O-Wisp on it. He can run like a max defense, max HP Weezing, which would be kind of problematic for my team, so I have to prepare for that. Hitmonchan, obviously a physically offensive Pokemon with Rapid Spin. Not much to say there. Could run an Assault Vest variant, but it doesn't have the best defenses. And regular Rotom, which is actually kind of scary because it does get Trick. Can also Will-O-Wisp, Thunder Wave, Volt Switch, Shadow Ball, things like that. So it gets a lot of different utility type options for his team. In terms of what I expect him to bring, I think Mew and Sylveon are pretty much 100%. I really think Weezing is very likely as well because it does take on my Excadrill well. I think Talonflame is also very likely, and then I think you're going to see kind of a mix between either the Gyarados, Kyurem, maybe the Seismitoad, or the Lucario. So those are kind of the mons that I'm expecting him to bring. And it's gonna be very interesting. So let's bring in our team builder here. The first Pokemon we're gonna be bringing this week is our Godzilla coming back, but we're not bringing Sandstream this week. I'm not gonna be bringing the Sand, and I'm gonna hopefully explain that here momentarily. But I'm bringing a max attack, max HP variant with just a tiny bit of speed to make sure we outpace most variants of Sylveon. Stealth Rock is there obviously because we need it to set up the Stealth Rocks to keep Kyurem and Talonflame at bay. Superpower hits things like Gyarados really hard. It hits Lucario, hits the Kyurem really hard. Stone Edge, of course, hits the Talonflame. Oko's Talonflame even after Will-O-Wisp, so if I get burned, I can Oko the Talonflame, and Crunch does a tremendous amount of damage to a Mew. And the nice thing is we actually have Unnerve instead of Sandstream, allowing us to make sure that his berries on that Mew, if he has like a Colbur Berry, does not work against our Tyranitar. So this thing can put in a lot of work from an offensive perspective, but I kind of pretty much had to bring him because I needed the Stealth Rock setter, and I need to check the Talonflame, and this thing does do really well against Talonflame. Again, even after a Will-O-Wisp, I can OHKO with Stone Edge, so that's pretty nice to know. The next Pokemon we're bringing is not a Sand Rush Excadrill, obviously, but rather a Mold Breaker Choice Scarf Adamant Excadrill. I'm bringing this set this week because I'm so worried about Weezing, and I figured even though Sand, like Excadrill in the Sand would be really good against this team, I'm concerned about that Weezing coming because it's a great check to my Adamant Excadrill. So the nice thing is, with a Scarf, I outspeed pretty much everything in this team, including that Talonflame. I'm going to outspeed an Adamant Gyarados as well prior to Dragon Dance. If he Dragon Dances, I'll actually still outspeed Adamant Gyarados. If he's Jolly Gyarados, he'll outspeed us. But Iron Head does a ton to the Sylveon. Earthquake does a lot to... I mean, you can just see how Excadrill puts in the work. Rock Slide OHKO's Talonflame. And Earthquake, after Stealth Rocks, has a chance to OHKO the Weezing, I believe. It's actually pretty close. Weezing gets destroyed by Earthquake because of that Mold Breaker, removing its Levitate, which is really, really nice. That also helps us against Rotom, too. We'll kind of remove Rotom's Levitate and allow us to hit with Earthquake as well. So this thing is going to hit incredibly hard, and it's definitely my late-game Pokemon. Can sweep his team and can put in a lot of work. It's going to put a lot of offensive pressure on his team, and it does outpace everything. I can even 2-hit KO the Mew with Earthquake, depending on his spread. We've got Mega Venusaur here, of course. Asparagus coming back, rocking a relaxed nature, so we're gonna basically drop our speed stat. I felt that in the speed tier, it's not gonna really matter. If he's gonna like run max speed invested Sylveon, he'd outspeed me anyway. So Sludge Bomb, Giga Drain, Synthesis, Earthquake. Earthquake is there for the Lucario. This is one of my primary responses to Lucario because it can be such a huge threat against my team and it can set up against me. Obviously, I can't touch Weezing, but Weezing can't really do much back to me aside from burn me. So I could go into Vaporeon, Heal Bell that off, which I'll talk about in a little bit, or Scald it. So I get some momentum there. But really, this thing is meant to take on things like it could take on a lot of variants of Mew if he's not carrying a Psychic move, which I know sounds kind of weird, but it is possible. It could take on Sylveon, unless he specs Sylveon. Modest spec Sylveon does 2-hit KO me with Psyshock, but it's very unlikely in my opinion that he carries that, and if he does bring that, then I'll know he's locked into Psyshock, and I could simply go into my Tyranitar again. This thing is my primary response to Gyarados. Even if he's not Mega Gyarados, this thing still comes in on it. He could run a bounce variant, but I have a couple switch-ins to that, so I'm not as concerned about a bounce variant, but still very scary. And again, this thing is another primary response to Kyurem, both Kyurem and Lucario. Obviously, being able to take Draco Meteor, synthesis them up, and I could take both stabs from Lucario pretty easily, including his priority, and do about 70% with an Earthquake. So I'm really excited about this Venusaur set, and I really felt like Earthquake was the right move to carry for that Lucario, just in case, to make sure I can cover pretty much everything in his team. The next Pokemon we're bringing is our Ditto here, Mystique coming through, and Mystique has a very important role this week. With his team having so many setup sweepers, including potential Mew, Talonflame, Gyarados, Lucario setup sweeper, Spiritomb setup sweeper. He's got so many Pokemon that can set up on me. I really needed to bring Ditto to ensure that he's a little bit hesitant to do that. And the other thing that Ditto does for me is it allows me to scout out what Mew set he's bringing. If he sends in Mew, I can actually just send in Ditto and scout for the set. Most of the time, Mew is not gonna like click Shadow Ball against my team, so or anything that would be super effective against itself. I could also synchronize a burn back to the Mew if I need to. If he tries to Will-O-Wisp me, Mystique can take that. But really, Mystique has a huge role in this team, and scouting out his sets, trying to figure out what he's bringing, why he's bringing it, and giving me a better opportunity to let Excadrill clean up at the end there, and some of our other Pokemon you're going to see here, some of our other offensive Pokemon. But Ditto is so crucial in this match, and I am carrying Hidden Power Rock this week, which is a little bit weird, but I felt that since it hits the Gyarados, it hits the Kyurem, and it hits the Talonflame, it's probably my best bet. The only things that you'd really carry Hidden Power on would be probably maybe the Kyurem, if you wanted to carry like a Hidden Power Fighting or something, I don't know, maybe Lucario or something, like maybe Seismitoad. Like, he's not really likely to carry a lot of Hidden Power Pokemon, but I felt like Ditto, HP Rock was the one that made the most sense for me. I made a last-minute scratch here. I was actually bringing Salamence this week, a Dragon Dance variant with Lumberry, but at the last minute, I decided to change it to Delphox. I felt like Delphox just had a better matchup against his team, and it was kind of an oversight in my team building that I didn't realize that Delphox matched up pretty well. But what Delphox does for me is it gives me something that outspeeds Mew, which is really nice. It gives me something that can take on Mew's Psychic-type moves. It gives me something that can outspeed the Gyarados and do a tremendous amount to it if he's bringing a Mega Gyarados. Grass Knot can actually kill after Stealth Rock's damage. If he brings a Sylveon, I can set up on Sylveon, which is really nice. So this gives me another check to Sylveon, because I obviously resist Psyshock and Hyper Voice. And if he's carrying Shadow Ball, then he's fully offensive anyway, which is going to be problematic. But I've got the Calm Mind there, Fire Blast, Grass Knot, Psychic. This gives me another Lucario switch in. I OHKO that with Fire Blast. After Rocks, I have a chance to kill Kyurem as well. Grass Knot kills Seismitoad. You can see kind of why I brought this thing. It also Psychic OHKOs Weezing, so it gives me another answer to Weezing. I just felt like Harry had a really good matchup against his team, and it was too good not to bring, and it has a really good opportunity to clean up at the end there, especially since Talonflame would be really the only thing that would outspeed it, unless he brings like a Choice Scarf variant or something, Choice Scarf something. So, and again, Tyranitar is a very good Talonflame response. And last but not least, just another backup response to Talonflame and some of his other Pokemon. I felt that I needed Heal Bell on this team because he just has too many status users like Weezing and Talonflame and potentially Mew, things like that could Will-O-Wisp me, even Rotom. So I needed Heal Bell on this team. I didn't want to risk anything. I need to make sure that Excadrill and T-Tar are healthy. Same with Mew and Delphi. You know what I mean? Like and even Venusaur, I can't afford a burn there. So I got Heal Bell, Scald, Wish, Toxic. I really wanted to fit Raw on this set, but I just couldn't. I'm a little worried about a sub DD Gyarados, but if he brings sub DD Gyarados, then Venusaur usually checks that pretty well. So I'm not too concerned there, but I brought Toxic so I can hit the Seismitoad. Wish, obviously, for longevity, I could wish up my T-Tar and Venusaur and stuff like that. And obviously, Scald is just a great coverage move and probably the best offensive move we have. So that's kind of our team there. It's going to be really weird. This is a tough matchup, man. He's got a lot of different Pokemon with a lot of different movesets that he could bring. So I try to cover the spectrum as best as I could. It's really going to depend on kind of what Mew he brings, whether I'm able to scout that out right away, whether my Delphox set is effective. I got to get my Stealth Rocks up, especially if he brings Talonflame. Stealth Rocks are a priority. And I gotta be really wary of things like that Gyarados because it can be pretty problematic against my team, especially if he gets like a substitute up and he runs like a sub bounce variant. That could be actually pretty tough for my team to deal with. I do have Vaporeon obviously, but it is still a problem and I can't break his substitutes. I don't have Roar. So like a regular Gyarados that's not Mega is actually probably more scary than a Mega Gyarados would be in some ways, simply because Vaporeon's gonna have a hard time if he's like a sub DD bounce waterfall. I think that would be kind of tough for me to take down, but I guess in that case then we'll make it work. I think we can make it work. So it should be an interesting match, guys. I'm really excited for it. I hope you guys are as well. Show your love with that like button down below if you guys are hyped, as I said before. And I'm going to catch you guys tomorrow for the match against GameboyLuke and the Bristol City Blazikens. That's going to be it for me, guys. My name is Dan. I also go by aDrive, and I'm going to catch you guys later. Peace.